Hi, this is Praios and I'm a professional gambler. And yeah, today we will look into another video from Phil Galfond. Top 5 poker odds mistakes it is called. And yeah, I'm not sure what it is about. Probably about poker odds. Not sure if a video is needed about that because yeah, honestly, that's a pretty simple concept. But we will see what Phil Galfond makes out of it. Before we get into the video, please consider to check out my other channel too. It's called Finance with Excel. Not many subscribers yet, but I hope it will be more after this video. I'm talking about Bitcoin, finance, and investing in this channel. But without further ado, let's now jump into the video of Phil Galfond.
Hey everybody, you might know by now, but our top 5 format is one where my producer and friend Thomas throws out a list at me, an idea for top 5 blank, and then I come up with it on the fly. So without further ado, let's see what he's got for me today.
So top 5 poker pot odds mistakes.
I think I'm just going to go with one. So I think that far and away,
Hard to come up with 5 there. Okay, let's see.
The biggest mistake that people make at kind of all levels, not just beginner, when it comes to pot odds, has to do with equity realization. So there's your equity, and then there's how much of your equity you realize. So what do I mean by that? Let's say that, whatever, you have ace queen, I have fives, I have 52% equity or something. But when you raise the cutoff and I call in the big blind, am I going to realize all of that equity? Maybe, maybe not. Being out of position, you realize less equity. And with certain categories of hands, you realize less equity. So the areas where this really comes into play.
It looks like he basically is talking about playability of hands. So, yeah. With crappy hands, where you never know where you are at, yeah, you will not be able to realize your equity, or you will make a lot of costly mistakes, often with the best hand, or sometimes call down with the worst hand, for example, when you have a bad kicker. But let's see what he has to say when he elaborates further about the topic.
It's more often in so I guess I think of it a lot in PLO terms because I'm a PLO player, but every hand pre-flop has decent equity. Like the worst hands in PLO against some of the best hands in.
Yeah, that's especially true for pot limit Omar, not necessarily for no limit hold'em. I mean, hands like 7 deuce off or 9 deuce off, things like that, it just has terrible equity. But they are still probably 20% or something most of the time against the range. Against the range, probably even more, but yeah, also the playability, as mentioned, is just so bad. But in PLO, it's also the same for some type of hands that just play very terribly. For example, if you have a middling flush or something, you can make a lot of mistakes, calling incorrectly or folding too much.
PLO will still have 35% equity, and you're defending the big blind getting 2-1. So according to your pot odds, you can call with everything. But obviously, we don't do that. And the reason for that is equity realization or implied odds in reverse.
I remember there was a time where people were arguing that you could defend your big blind basically with everything based on the argumentation he just made. And yeah, this is now wrong, we realized. But a few years back, some of the best players had this approach. And they also were like, okay, I'm like the best player, and so I will outmaneuver and outplay people, so I can definitely defend very wide, which is not true.
Implied odds, they're all kind of the same thing. So when you have a hand that is likely to flop, turn, and river hands that can do a lot of betting and a lot of calling, then you have good implied odds. You have good equity realization. If you have a hand that is not going to be able to do a lot of betting, not going to be able to do a lot of raising on a lot of flops, turns, and rivers, and has to do a lot of folding, then you have poor equity realization or reverse implied odds. So in Hold'em, a good example of this is, middle position raises and it's folded to you in the small blind and you have ace-7 offsuit. You're like, well, if he doesn't have a pair or ace high, I have the best hand. And even if he has, if he has king-queen suited, I have the best hand. Even if he has kings, I have whatever that is, 30% equity, which is not that bad. But the problem is when you flop an ace and a lot of money goes into the pot, oftentimes you're going to be up against a bigger ace. You're going to lose a big pot. And when you don't flop an ace, let's say Jack 10-3 is the flop, you're going to check fold and sometimes check fold the best hand and not get to realize all of that equity. So for example, let's say your opponent has king queen, the flop is Jack 9-3, you check, your opponent bets, you fold, you folded something like 60 to 65% equity right then. And so not like you had 55% pre-flop, you called. On the flop, you had 65% equity and you folded. And that's going to happen very often when you have a hand that doesn't flop a lot of draws, doesn't.
I feel like most things that he's talking about are true and also mistakes people make, but not necessarily have to do with pot odds. I mean, a bit, but the video could have had a completely different topic too.
Flop a lot of like very strong made hands. And so looking at just your pot odds and what your equity is against your opponent's range is a mistake that, or rather is a mistake in the way of looking at things that leads to mistakes in the way you play your hands. And this concept carries over street to street. So sometimes, you'll have a drawing hand that, based on the bet size that you're facing right now, could call, but you have to keep in mind that you're going to face future bets. You might not realize your equity because you have to fold the turn, not getting to see the river card, or you have a weakish draw where when you do hit, you don't.
That's why you should not take the pot odds from the flop for seeing 2 cards if you are not all in. Then you should just take the pot odds for seeing 1 additional card, and these are only half as good. Not sure what he's talking about.
Don't have implied odds, you have reverse implied odds because your opponent's going to have a stronger flush reasonably often. For example, you see this a lot in limit games. So like 7-card stud, pre-flop you're getting whatever 4-1, 3-1. You could play so many hands if the hand ended right there. But the problem is there are, 5 more streets of betting or something in 7-card stud. So if you want to actually see your way all the way to 7th Street, you're going to need to put in another bet and another bet and another bet. And so your true odds are a lot worse than they seem. So yeah, keep in mind that, keep an eye on hands that realize their equity poorly, because again, they don't flop or turn or river things that want to put in a lot of money.
Did he use the word playability already? I think not. But yeah, that's what he's talking about all the time.
And they're more often doing the check calling and guessing and hoping and hanging on. And then other hands where you don't quite have the equity to call. Let's say that you flop like a nut flush draw with ace deuce of spades on king 7-5 and whatever, your opponent bets 2x pot. And they show you that they have king 7. You don't have the odds to call there because you're something like 33% equity. Actually, that's a bad example. Maybe they pot and they show you 2 pair. Regardless, you don't have the odds to call because you're going to hit your flush on the turn, whatever, 16, 17% of the time, and then they're going to keep betting, you're going to fold. But when you do hit your flush, you're going to make a lot more money and you're going to be able to put in a lot of money. So in that case, and if they, this is again a bad example because they've shown you that they have 2 pair, but in practice, in spots where they can have weaker flush draws as well, and you can win huge pot when you hit. Same thing is true of like playing small pocket pairs, multi-way.
Yeah, that's also something. He's talking about the direct odds you get, but you always also have to figure in what will happen if I hit. Can I extract more value or not? And if you can extract more value, on the next street, most likely, or even a ton of extra value, especially if, let's say, there are 2 more streets to play and you might get in 2 more big bets, then you obviously can call, even if the direct odds are not good enough, because of the money that will go in after you call this bet. So this is called implied odds. And yeah, so you could, for example, say, okay, the pot will be in reality like double as big as it is due to the pot odds, and that will justify your call. But yeah, it's actually, as I said, a very simple concept, the pot odds. And it's getting a bit more complicated if you also include implied odds, but it's still not that complicated. But yeah, every poker player should understand it, as this is the basis for a lot of things and for making good decisions.
Or heads up, but like especially multi-way, where pocket threes, it does not have great equity against 4 other hands, but when you do hit your 3, you can win a big pot. Those are hands that overrealize their equity.
Good old set mining in No Limit Hold'em, but yeah, in Pot Limit Omaha, playing small pairs is not advisable, especially multi-way, because you will often get oversetted. So this is not true for Pot Limit Omaha, actually.
And of course, out of position, you realize less of your equity. In position, you realize more of your equity, which is why you get to play more hands in later position. Hopefully that's helpful for some of you, and you keep that in mind as you make your pre-flop hand selections and decide what to continue with on the flop as well.
Okay, this, I think he sort of failed. Explaining the topic. Let's see. For people who do not know what we were talking about, trying to find a definition of pot odds. It's so bad that I'm from Germany. It's only showing me German articles. I want an English one. I mean, I'm not. Yeah. The English Wikipedia. That's it? Are you kidding me? That's your pot odds article? Yeah. The ratio of pot size to the cost of contemplated call. So if someone bets half pot, you get 2-1. Or what? Or 66.7%. That's also not done very well. Implied odds. We got something on implied odds as well. That's very disappointing that they have no good article about this on Wikipedia. Sure. Poker math. Let's try this. Seems like I'm wasting your time even more with searching for this. Sure. Let me. That's really annoying, but it's so hard to find. Poker odds explained. Oh, the masterclass. Okay, let's go with this one. Accept it for now. Okay, they explain nothing, or do they? Oh, here it is. Okay, not too bad, this definition. Poker odds can be described as a probability that you can expect to win or lose. What's the price of the offer? Okay, this chart, you can find it in a lot of variations. This is also the one for no limit hold'em. But yeah, this is basically the one. So if you have 15 outs and then you need pot odds of 2-1, and so you can basically call a pot size bet. So an example for this is a flush draw plus 2 overcards. And yeah, if you have just one out, if you have a smaller set and you, for some reason now, but your opponent has a higher set, then you need insane odds and you can basically never call. And yeah, the odds are double, yeah, more favorable for you if you see 2 more cards. And this, for example, is the case if you get all in on the flop. But if you just call a bet and go to the turn, then you should use the ones from the first column and otherwise from the second one. Yeah. Yeah, that's basically the pot odds concept. And it's basically about when you call bets that you get the right price to do so. Yeah, that's about it. And yeah, you can also use the pot odds in order to determine how often you need to be good. So like, for example, say you are on the river, you have a bluff catcher. So you are losing against all value hands from your opponent, but winning against all their bluffs. So like middle pair or something in no limit hold'em. Or yeah, something like that. Or bottom pair. Well, some draws busted, for example. And yeah, now you have to determine, is he bluffing enough in order for me to make this call profitable? And yeah, let's say he bets full pot. So the pot is 1, he bets 1. So 2 is in the pot and you have to call 1 in order to win. And these are pot odds. So the total, I think you need, what do you need in these? I had this in another stream and I also was getting confused. Let's pull up the calculator, or Rechner in German. So is it this? Need to be good half the time. Is this correct? I think that's not correct. The correct answer is this. So you have to be good 33% of the time. 33? Oh yeah, 33%. In order to make this profitable. And if your opponent, for example, bluffs half the time, you will make money. But if he bluffs less than 33%, then you will lose money. So this is also always opponent dependent. If someone is bluffing almost never, then this is an easy fold. But against a maniac or someone who's balanced, this might be a close call. I hope now the concept of pot odds is a bit more clear. I'm pretty sure I did not explain it the best way possible. Sorry for that. And also the explanation should have been in the beginning, but I expected Phil Galfond to do something about it, but he did not. So yeah. Yeah, I hope you still got something out of the video. If you, although this was a bit confused and the explanation that should have been in the beginning was on the end, I still hope you liked it. And if that's the case, please like, subscribe. Also check out my other channel. And yeah, if you watch this on YouTube, check out my Twitch too. And yeah, also I got 2 Twitters. On one, I'm very active. So yeah, feel free to follow me there too. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.